from Doctor Who, or are you the architect from The Matrix?
I only watched the first Matrix film, so I
The
don't
thing is,
remember who the architect is.
I only know about the architect because I watched Scary Movie 3, and they have a big old section on it. The guy's playing the architect, some famous American comedian. I can't remember his name, and he's like has this vibrating chair which he like makes love to because he's lonely. And that's literally my only knowledge of the architect. 'Cause I've never seen the other two Matrix films either. In fact, I've only seen
Mm,
Matrix 1 once in my life, and it
yeah,
was all
I've only
right.
seen it once, I think.
It's all right. It's not great.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Hello, welcome to episode 231 of Heroes of Handheld 231. Thank you for tuning in this week. We're back after 2 weeks away. We are both on holiday last week, so forgive us because some of the news is going to be very recent, and some of it we will be playing a little bit of catch up because there were some big stories that we do want to talk about. Colin, how
Hi.
are you?
I'm great. I'm filled with happiness and joy because I had a few days on the happiest place on earth, and I bought loads of stuff. And you can't help. Well, if you go to any form of Disney park around the world, you can't help but come back with a big old smile on your face. But the
Mm.
question remains: if I'm really happy, why do I sound so miserable? I think I just have a. I think I've decided I just have a natural, like resting bitch face. I think I just have a miserable resting voice because I personally think I always sound miserable, but I'm not miserable. I'm very happy, Chris. Very happy.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it. It's interesting that you were at Disneyland a day
Yeah.
apart from when my partner was there. The coincidence is tiny. It's such a small world, isn't it? It's a
I
small world
know.
after all.
It's small after all. Yeah, I like where you went with that. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Well
Thank
played.
you very much.
Um, so yeah, we have got a lot to get through today. So I think we
Yeah.
need to get straight into it, to be honest with you, because I'm looking at this long list. I think it's weird. We take a week off, and I think all the shit happens. All the stuff happens, and yeah, there's lots of stuff we need to get our teeth into. But the first thing I want to talk about, Chris, Fortnite. You play Fortnite. Let's get straight into it. No messing. You like a bit of Fortnite.
Bam.
Brilliant. So you like Fortnite?
Yes, and Fortnite. I've been playing. We talked about this a lot. I've been playing it on Switch. I had to make a new profile because, as we all know, originally you couldn't sign into your Epic Games account if you'd already linked it to a PlayStation, and then signed in on a Nintendo console. However, very
Yes.
excitingly today, this is huge.
This is
On
big
the
because
Go on.
you're doing it then.
I,
Fuck it, you
well,
do it then.
I,
Go on
I,
then.
I was only just going to say, before Colin reads the main blog post out, this is so exciting for me personally because this is something I've wanted PlayStation to do for ages. And also, I love, 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 love that Microsoft on Twitter and PlayStation on Twitter, I just love when they back and forth with each other. I think it's really cool. So anyway, Colin, give us the main gist of the story.
So, as you know, PlayStation and Sony have been very reluctant to embrace cross-platforming gaming, and I think the initial issue came up with Rocket League, if I remember
Yep.
rightly, because you could do crossplay with Microsoft and the Xbox and Switch and all these different platforms, and everyone was expecting because PlayStation and Sony are normally for the gamers. That's what they big themselves up as being. People were a bit surprised with their stance of, "Oh no, we've got no interest in cross-platform. We don't want to do it. Go away, leave us
Yeah.
alone." So it came as a bit of a surprise.
Sorry, just to cut you off. The other big Minecraft was the other big one around the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, all these
When
big games. That
yeah,
just it makes sense to have cross-platform with these games. But the big news today is that Sony, out of nowhere, a little bit, PlayStation released a statement, a blog post on the PlayStation blog, stating that from today they've released a beta, or I can never say, I don't know whether it's beta or beta for cross-platform play on Fortnite. So that means if you have Fortnite on PlayStation 4, you're able to play with people who've got it on Android, iOS, Switch, Xbox One, Windows, or Mac. So this is very exciting, and it is huge, huge news that Sony have finally backtracked on their initial stance on it. And it's quite a short blog post, but they do go into a lot of technical mumbo jumbo about striving to deliver the best gaming experience. And they do make a point here that the fact they are embracing cross-platform now, it represents a major policy change. So that means from what they're saying, they're going to have to rework and reword their policies and their procedures with this. But it's very interesting. The beta starts today. If you got Fortnite on PlayStation? I know you've got a PlayStation 4. I don't have a PlayStation 4. Have you tried it out yet?
No, I haven't tried it out
Great.
yet because the beta only started a couple of hours ago, and I have been at work, Colin. But it is very exciting, and Fortnite as well on Twitter have said that as well as this happening with the cross play, they intend to add an account merging feature to combine battle royale purchases, which will come in November, and enabling unlinking a console from one Fortnite account and relinking it to another Fortnite account, which will come in a few days. They've said that on Twitter as well. So it's not just cross play; it sounds like cross progression is happening as well, which is arguably maybe more exciting. Being able to log in on more than one place. Cross play is cool, but being able to have your different profiles is really exciting as well. For me personally, that's what I'm really keen for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not as big into Fortnite as you are. I've played a few games. I've enjoyed it. The platform I've enjoyed it the most is on Nintendo Switch. I think that's one of the best platforms to play it on. Played it on mobile, played it on Xbox, wasn't really getting it. But now, well, it's not really going to change my stance at all. But it's just cool that more people can play together. And we look to the future as to what games they could embrace cross-play going forward. I would love there to be cross-play and cross-platform with FIFA or a game like that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Great. That would be great. I don't know how that would work on EA and things like that, but we can only hope. So that's good news. That was great news and a surprising news that came out today. And continuing the Sony hype, I just want to mention something else. You know that Nintendo have released a few mini consoles like nostalgic. Was it the SNES Mini? We've had
the NES Mini and the SNES Mini.
So this one sort of took me by surprise. A lot of people were a bit like, okay, why are they doing this? But Sony have announced the PlayStation Classic. And what this is, it's a mini version of the PS1, which comes preloaded with 20 games, including Final Fantasy 7, Tekken 3, Wild Arms, and there's 17 other legendary titles here as well, which are listed somewhere, I'm sure. But apparently it's been 25 years, almost 25 years since the original PlayStation came out, which actually blows my mind that the PlayStation is almost the same age as us. That's crazy.
That's bizarre. That's really bizarre.
That's crazy. So they're releasing this mini version, nostalgic console, which got these games built in. Don't really know whether there was a high demand for something like this, because for me, the PlayStation 1 doesn't seem like that old of a console. With the SNES Mini and all the consoles that Nintendo have done, it made sense because those consoles are quite a bit older than the PlayStation 1. But for me, the PlayStation 1 doesn't really feel that. I know it's saying 25 years, but still feels not modern, but not as old. So is there going to be a demand for people to get this? Because you can still access a lot of the PS1 games on other consoles. Like I played a lot of PS1 classics on my Vita. I'm sure you can do it on PlayStation 4 as well. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. The PlayStation 1, the actual console itself was never a very pretty device. It was never a good thing to look at. It was just like a grey box with horrible clunky buttons. So I don't know. Well, for me, it doesn't interest me at all. It's interesting that Sony are doing this, and maybe it's the combat. I mean, I'm not completely in the know about the backwards compatibility of the PlayStation 4. Am I right in thinking you still can't play old games on the PlayStation 4? Yeah. So maybe this is their way of tackling that and getting people to shut up about that. But don't know. Maybe it would have been easier to introduce backwards compatibility rather than releasing this. Don't know. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look great because I never thought the PS1 looked very nice. I think it's a very ugly console, and this looks just as ugly as the original PlayStation 1, in my opinion.
Interestingly, the controller doesn't appear to have analog sticks as well. So yes, a lot of the game, which I can't really remember playing a PlayStation with analog sticks, but I mean without them, but it must have happened.
Yeah, I think we had a controller which had analog sticks and one didn't, if I remember rightly.
Did it still have joysticks or just no sticks?
No, so no. Well, one controller had no sticks.
Oh yeah, I do remember these. Yeah, and that's a bit of a shame because there's certain games which, especially shooters and stuff, like if I don't know, I mean, I'm not too sure on what's on this list, but if like Metal Gear and stuff, I can't really imagine playing that without joysticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's quite cheap. It's only 90 quid. You know, that's quite a good deal. A lot of games on there. It'll probably make quite a good present for someone who's, you know, who you want to get them like
That'd be
you know
funny,
they're
but
like
if
PlayStation
you
back in
want,
the day.
if you're on
Go on.
Nintendo Switch and you open up a PS1 classic, you're going to be a bit devastated, to be honest.
Oh yeah, true, but you know it's still like it's a nice little something, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's coming out further December in the US and Canada. Comes with a USB cable, 2 controllers, local multiplayer. Um, so he's saying that December the 3rd is a historic date for PlayStation. Why is that? Do you know, Chris? Is that when the
Uh,
original one came
I
out? I don't
will
know. December
look
3rd.
it up whilst
Have
you
a look.
cover the next bit of news.
Yeah, so that's something that's happening. So look out for that. And linking on to this, I think this is really just rumor at the moment. I don't know whether there's been much of an update on this, but hot on the heels of the PlayStation 1 Classic being announced, we had rumors that there's going to be an N64 Classic as well. So more classic consoles. Now, the N64 looks a lot better, but you have to say the controller of the N64 was one of the most ridiculous things ever. The joystick on there, the analog stick, was terrible. It was right in the middle of the controller. You didn't know how you're supposed to hold the controller to access it. It was just really weird. And there's 3 handles on it. Like I did never really understood the idea or the logic behind the controller for the N64. But anyway, so, evidence has surfaced surrounding Nintendo's next classic mini console. They've already had the NES and the SNES mini launches, but they looks like they're heading towards the N64 as well. Recently, Nintendo filed a Nintendo 64 mini trademark in Europe, and this also featured a silhouette of the iconic N64 gamepad. Whether or not the console launches in time for Christmas rush remains to be seen. But if Nintendo is quick, it could be out to compete with the PlayStation 1 Classic. So we wait and see about that. And the trademark doesn't hint towards any games, but you'd probably expect it to be pre-installed with Super Mario 64, Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, Legend of Zelda, all those games, I would imagine. And GoldenEye. That'd be great. Can you imagine?
Where is this? Where is this news? Just where's the news source for this one, Colin?
The news source is kitguru.net. Where we get all the
I wonder, right? Bear with me on this. The NES and the SNES still, those graphics still look good because it was chips, it was pixelated, it's kind of quirky. I don't know if I want to play PS1 or N64 games now because they're gonna look like
awful.
shit.
Yes,
and
they do.
You know, PlayStation 1, Lara Croft, spiky everything. Like Nintendo
the original Tomb Raider looks absolutely shocking if you look at it now. The graphics on that game are terrible.
It's because it's a product of its time, and it was, the first kind of examples of 3D rendering, and I do understand that, but this is why for me, even though this rumor is kind of coming around again of an N64 Classic, I veer much closer towards I don't think we'll get an N64 Classic until we've had a Game Boy Classic.
Yeah.
Because Game Boy, iconic, pixel art, handheld, makes sense. N64 Classic, a lot of those games you remember because the multiplayer, so how the controller's going to work for this. Also, GoldenEye, I love GoldenEye, but the rights for that are a nightmare because of James Bond. And same thing with a lot of the Rare games, which are a lot of the fond memories, Banjo-Kazooie and all this stuff. If Banjo, obviously Nintendo and Microsoft seem to be working quite well together at the moment with all their Minecraft shenanigans. So maybe there would be some sort of Banjo-Kazooie thing, but I don't know. I don't know how much I want an N64 Classic. The thing is, I don't know how much I want either. I don't know how much I want any of this because I'd rather just buy a disc for my PlayStation or buy a cartridge for my Switch that had 20 classic N64 games on it.
Yeah, it's all about having that mini console, isn't it? It's all about just owning it and having that on display.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't know. I don't really like that because it just takes up more space. It's more wires. Yeah. It's more bullshit. Like, why can't it just be a download?
No, I don't get it. It's strange. The biggest surprise for me is the PS1 Classic because that's come out of nowhere. No one asked for it, and it's just a bit like a cash grab. Well, it seems like a little bit, but oh well. Anyway, so that's that. Should we move on to the Nintendo Direct that happened the week we were off? Because a few things were announced a couple of weeks ago, and it's old news, but I feel we need to mention this.
Yeah, I think what we should probably do is just rather than go through. Obviously, we won't go through the whole thing because it's all old news by now, but What were your Colin? Did you watch the direct or did you just catch up afterwards?
I
And
catched
what
up
were your standouts?
afterwards. I mean, it wasn't great from in terms of what they showed. I did watch a bit, but actually, I remember they showed what the Nintendo Online will include, and it was like a bit like, oh, is that it? I think was it. They said it's obviously online gameplay, uh, special discounts. What else did
Cloud
they say it
saves.
included? Cloud saves. Yeah, that was another of the big ones, and there was something else that there's like 5 things. They had 5 little
Yeah,
images,
it was a
icons.
5-part plan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like,
It
was
was
that it?
play online, cloud saves, discounts,
Oh,
SNES
old games.
games,
Yeah, that was it. Mm.
and something else. I can't
Just
remember what the other
expecting a
thing
bit
was.
more. Just expecting a bit more from that. But Luigi's Mansion 3 looked nice. And obviously Animal Crossing was the big one. That was revealed as well. There's been a lot of memes made out of. I don't know what the name of the character is because I don't play Animal Crossing. But there's like the character sat on the desk, and like lots of memes have been made
But
out of that.
Tom Nook or Isabel?
I have no idea. Man, I don't know. It's like a sheep. Look like a bit like a sheep, maybe.
Do you mean Tom Nook, the raccoon?
I don't know. There wasn't no raccoon. Let me have a look.
There was a raccoon, Tom Nook.
Animal Crossing 2019 meme. It was. Oh no, maybe it was the raccoon. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, he sat at a desk wearing a blazer, and looked very angry. But then there's a picture of him next to a Switch, looking happy. So I don't know what to believe anymore. But are you hyped? I'm guessing you're hyped for Animal Crossing. It's a big thing for you. You play it a lot.
The main things I came out of it with, Animal Crossing 2019, very excited. Obviously, you know how much I love Isabel, so her in Smash, even though it's been rumored for a long time, was very cool to watch, and I think she's going to be really fun to play as. And the fact she's her own fighter rather than an Echo fighter as well is really cool. I think the card game stuff they talked about is quite interesting, especially Munchkin and Settlers of Catan. It's interesting because I feel like video game consoles really suit certain board games and certain card games, and for me that's why this is quite an interesting move. So I mean, we'll see how that plays and how you will play all of your round one console. But that could be really, really good. Luigi's Mansion looked really cool. I thought the Final Fantasy stuff didn't really speak to me. I felt kind of bombarded with Final Fantasy info, but I'm glad, like for Final Fantasy fans, I'm glad it was in there.
I've never been a fan of Final Fantasy, so that stuff was just a bit like, okay.
It was just a lot to take in, wasn't it? Interesting. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good direct, all things considered. And yeah, we'll see. We'll have to see how well some of those announcements do. 2019 could, I feel like 2018 has been a good year for Nintendo, but not an amazing one in terms of first party releases. Obviously, we've got Smash on the way, so hopefully 2019 already looks like it's lining up to be bigger. So yeah, we will see. But yeah, obviously Isabel and Smash that really got my gears whirring. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. Your two biggest loves, like Animal Crossing and Smash.
I know. Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a good direct. Colin.
Yes. Actually, talking to Smash very quickly, can we talk about a sort of a happy, a sad story quickly about how Nintendo let a terminally ill patient play Super Smash Bros. Ultimate early, which was a nice move from Nintendo.
I do want to say I love stuff like this. I think it's really cool when companies like there was a thing last year about the really sick young person who wanted to see, or maybe it was top of this year, who wanted to see Infinity War Part 1, and I think it's really special when companies do this, and like this behavior I think should be really applauded and celebrated. And with this case of Chris Taylor, who was the young chap who passed away unfortunately, obviously Chris, it looks like, was really big in the Smash community as well. I think that's really important. And it's such a nice touch for Nintendo to do this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a rare type of bone cancer, which has been fighting for 3 years. But it seemed like the online Twitter community sort of all rallied around him and were tweeting Nintendo America, making them aware of his story and how he's a massive Nintendo fan and how he'd love to play Smash Bros. And I think it was 2 representatives from Nintendo came down from they brought a copy of the E3 demo of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and they allowed him to play it. So I think he's probably one of the first people who played Super Smash Bros. Ultimate?
Well,
Actually, if it was at E3,
yeah, I'm just reading his tweets. It's really interesting. So yeah, it was the E3 demo, so it's, you know, a lot of people have played it, but it's still, you know, obviously very satisfying. And he tweeted saying that you know, these people were coming down. He got to play it for 3 hours with a friend, his brother, and his mum. And also, quite interestingly, there was a follow-up tweet which was that he found out they were coming a couple of days before, but couldn't say because a Switch with a demo of Smash on it is a really high-value target to be stolen. It's not really. That's really interesting, isn't it? But yeah, unfortunately, you know, Chris did pass away. But it is really cool that in his final moments he got to obviously enjoy what he really wanted to play.
Yeah, it's good that Nintendo did that. Yeah, it's nice to hear stories like this, and it does usually come from the world of Nintendo. They are good guys. They're good gals. They're a good team at Nintendo. But yeah, that's just a nice story to include in there very briefly. And also adds flames to the fire about how, you know, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is such a big deal for a lot of people out there. I mean, this is going to be huge. This is going to be absolutely massive when this game comes out, and it's going to completely trounce every other game. When's its release date? Is it November?
It's December, early December.
Late December. Yeah, that's going to be huge for Christmas presents and things like that. Lots of people are going to be buying that. So I'm very excited to play it because, as I've said before, I've never really played the Smash Bros. Game before. I know you played it quite a lot on, was it the Wii U that you played the version?
Yeah,
quite a lot?
All of them have played long, but Wii U was the real big one. Yeah, can't wait.
So that's a good story. Anyway, let's move on to some sad news here. And it's more news that sort of came out of nowhere, really, in the past week. I first heard about this when you sent me an article on our WhatsApp chat, and it was just a rumor at that point, wasn't it? About one of my favorite developers. I don't know if you can say the same thing. We talk about them quite a lot, and we have in the past on this podcast because they've released a lot of great games, and that is Telltale Games, who are known for their story-based games where your decisions ultimately choose how the story ends, how it plays out. And they've had games, you know, they've bought a lot of the rights to games such as Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy, Wolf Among Us, Walking Dead, of course, which is the one that got them really popular. So many games, and obviously Game of Thrones, can't forget that one either. But a tweet was, or a press release came out a couple of days ago. I think it was last week now, maybe. I think it was about a week ago. On the Telltale.
It was end of last week. It was Friday last week.
Yeah,
when the closure started being announced.
And basically, they've announced there's going to be a major studio closure, with the majority of this studio closing. And I think 250 staff members have lost their jobs, and they're keeping 25 people at the moment in. But a lot of very talented people, a lot of game developers, a lot of story makers have lost their jobs. And there's a lot of tweets coming out and a lot of accusations being thrown about on Twitter from employees of Telltale saying how it had been done in quite a bad way, how they'd only found out like that day and they didn't have a job. They were told that day and that was it. There was no like time to get your affairs in order. It was like, you haven't got a job, you've been made redundant, we don't need you now, you're done. And we're seeing stories on Twitter about how people had only been employed by Telltale like a couple of weeks prior. So they've been hired, they've gone through the recruitment process, and then a few days later, they've been told they haven't got a job anymore. So it's sort of come as a bit of a surprise, and the details as to how this has happened are a bit sketchy at the moment. But I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to they weren't making the money. And it did always surprise me a little bit. All these different franchises they were getting the rights to, they're pumping out games like no tomorrow. Like you finish with one series, and then they'd announce a new one. And I thought, you know, they must be spending a lot of money on all these big names. Like, you know, obviously Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel, that's not going to come cheap. The Walking Dead's obviously massive, and Game of Thrones would have been huge as well. And they were planning a Stranger Things one as well. So, you know, there's probably many reasons as to why they've struggled. Obviously, lots of games they're releasing, maybe the sales weren't as strong as they had previously been. I think a big issue with a lot of Telltale's games as well is that people, you know, there's Let's Plays on YouTube, and, you know, famous YouTubers and gamers will play the games on Twitch and things like that. For a game like the games that Telltale release, once you've watched it, you know, watched it played, you sort of don't need to play it yourself because the main draw is the story elements to it. I mean, the gameplay is mostly you walk around and look at objects and choose conversations. But once you've watched it on a Let's Play, I guess there's not really much incentive for you to go out and play it yourself because you've already seen what happens. And one of the big drawing points of their games is to see how the story will end and how your story will end. But I guess there's only a certain amount of ways it will end. But no, it's very sad about especially all these developers who've lost their jobs. And there's a big old rallying cry going around on Twitter to try and get these people employed at other studios. But it's just very sad. And obviously, me and you were looking forward to a lot of games that are in the pipeline. The biggest one probably was The Wolf Among Us 2, which The Wolf Among Us is one of my favorite games of the past 10 years. Absolutely love that game, one of their best. And they bigged up the second one. It all went very quiet on it. We didn't hear any news for quite a long time, and this is maybe why. I don't know how far into development they were, but as far as we can tell, The Wolf Among Us 2 has been cancelled altogether. A lot of their games, the fate of them are unknown. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy one, the future games have been cancelled for that. But I mean, there were some tweets and some news articles coming out this week that some of them might be saved.
It's a weird one because there seems to be, sorry, just my very important 2 cents is that it's so up in the air as to what's happening, because it looks from developers' accounts that they were given half an hour's notice to leave the building. And then so it's like some people, initial reports were saying, oh, a crew were going to stay on to finish Walking Dead, and then it was a crew were going to finish the Minecraft story mode thing, and then it was like, well, Walking Dead might be bought out. Meanwhile, you've got 250 developers, and staff who are out, who didn't get severance pay, which is horrendous, absolutely horrendous, and are only covered on their medical for a week after they were fired. And it's very well, not fired, well, let go rather than fired, I suppose. It's really sad, and something I think it is worth looking back on is that, and I hadn't really thought about this, but with Telltale games, there weren't actually many series, were there? Like, quite often they bought the rights for something like Borderlands or Guardians of the Galaxy or Game of Thrones, or maybe they didn't buy the rights, whatever the negotiation period is. But in hindsight, maybe it was telling from the fact that we didn't get a Game of Thrones 2, we didn't get a Borderlands 2, we didn't get that suggests that maybe they weren't as profitable as we might think, because the thing is, the games and the stories were so good that as players we were like, well, of course they'd make a sequel. But then if they're not selling, and I think you're right, the whole, people would have just watched them on YouTube. And also they did introduce the kind of crowd play mechanic, but I do feel like maybe that was a little bit too late. I sort of wonder as well whether they maybe, because before Walking Dead they had licensed stuff, like there was Jurassic Park and Back to the Future, and maybe they just bit off more than they can chew, because they grew so quickly from doing Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us, and then suddenly they were Minecraft and Batman, all these huge franchises. And it's like maybe the management wasn't very good, because they clearly took on more work than was possible. And all the meanwhile, you had the games coming out and the stories were great, but the gameplay was a struggle, and like people would often criticize them because the games would eat your save, or they wouldn't load properly, or they would freeze all the time. And it's like,
frame rate issues, lagging, non-responsive,
and me and you, as fans of Telltale and their storytelling methods, we kind of endured that stuff. But it does make you wonder how many people played one and were like, oh no, this runs so poorly, I'm not going to touch the others.
Especially like when they would release, when there was a series of games, like 5 episodes in the series, they'd release the first one for free, and then you'd have to pay for the rest of them. So a lot of people would just play the first game, they'd realize, oh, this is a bit clunky and not too great, and then they just wouldn't bother going back. I did that with the Batman games, because the first one was free, but I never actually went back and bought the rest, because I think they bigged up how there was going to be a new engine for the Batman games, but it wasn't. It was the same old engine. It was clunky. It would crash easily. It would frame rate issues. And, after how many years since The Walking Dead Series 1 came out, you think after all this time and all these games, they would have finally ironed that out. But
and it's kind of it's a huge shame, partly for the developers who, the staff that it's such a tragic way to lose your job, but also because Batman is one of the strongest Telltales I've played, and that second series is really good. And it's like, it would be one thing if the games came out and they were shit, but they were, for me, consistently fun and consistently interesting.
And what's interesting about them is you're saying about how they had all these titles and they never went back and went, to do second series. A lot of those games where they didn't go back and make sequels to them were left on cliffhangers.
Yeah, for sure.
The Wolf Among Us season 1 ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. The Game of Thrones series ended on a massive cliffhanger. Like it was like the start of, it was like building up to the next series at the end of the Game of Thrones series. So the fact they never made sequels sort of showed how money must have talked, and the fact they kept putting out the Walking Dead ones and the Minecraft story ones and not the others. But it's just sad, and just
really sad.
Just to sort of end this talk on Telltale, there's an article that came out as well. Vernie Roberts Jr., who was an employee of Telltale, is doing it's called a class action lawsuit against Telltale. The complaint alleges that the developer was obligated to provide 60 days notice of the impending termination in compliance with the state's WARN Act. And it's filed by the attorneys of Vernie Roberts Jr. He's seeking missed wages, salaries, 401k contributions, and any other compensation that would have been earned during the 60-day WARN Act period. The suit also names all other persons similarly situated who could join the class action, which could be as many as 275 employees who were fired from Telltale last week. So it's going to be messy. It's going to be a long process. There'll be a lot of lawsuits about this. And the fact it just happened so suddenly and there was no warning is the biggest shock at all. I mean, as I've said at the beginning of this whole talk, I had no idea they were struggling. There was no hints that they were struggling for money. I know, obviously, you can probably, looking back now in hindsight, you can assume, this is probably why. That's why they were struggling. But I did not think they were struggling because of all these games they were pumping out. Like they're in the middle of the final season of The Walking Dead. I think they've just released episode 2.
Came out today or yesterday.
But potentially that's being saved, but that's still a bit unsure at the moment, whether we'll get the final 3 episodes of that. But would anyone want to work on those final 3 episodes after how the staff are being treated? I don't know.
Yeah, and also it's like if they manage to get a big boatload of funding from somewhere, how much of that is going to be able to be put into games, and how much of it is going to be put into severance pay for the people they lost and any lawsuits that they have to settle and their debts. Yeah, tricky.
It's just a sad situation, but it's a good thing like our Telling Tales podcast was ended pretty quickly, because that'd be a bit awkward otherwise, wouldn't it? But we wait and see. It's a developing story. I'm sure we'll have more to say on this next week when there's more updates on what's going on with staff and their future games. But did you want to quickly mention some Switch news? I see there's a few more things here.
A dabble, Colin.
Dabble in. Go on.
We talked about Nintendo Online earlier. Well, today there's been some confusion because with cloud saves on Nintendo Online, it's not been particularly clear if your subscription lapses, how long the saves remain for. Because obviously with these rolling subscription services, sometimes you sign up on a credit card that then expires, and you worry about losing access. Nintendo have told IGN that the Switch owners who upload saves to the cloud save as part of Nintendo Online, if their subscription expires, it will be 180 days before the saves are deleted. So that's just a kind of useful FAQ thing to know, because before it wasn't particularly clear. Next bit of news story is that, speaking of board games and card games earlier, Ubisoft are publishing a bunch of board games which are coming to Switch. Trivial Pursuit, Risk, and Hasbro Game Night will all come on October the 30th. Very, very soon indeed, only a month away. And obviously, those three classic games. Monopoly I played Monopoly on PS3, and that was such a good way to play the game because it did all the banking for you, it did all the financing for you. You just passed the controller around and made decisions. And I'm really looking forward. Hopefully, Risk will run really well on Switch and Trivial Pursuit as well. I know I think Monopoly's already out, and I'm pretty sure it's not very good, but hopefully this will be a better version of it. or a better version of board games rather. Two other bits of news is that Spawnwave on Twitter are reporting that a leaked unreleased Switch cartridge for Super Mario Party has sold for $7,000. The game comes out in October, but an eBay listing went up and was sold for $7,000. Mental. $7,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. Mental. But yeah, whatever people want to spend their money on. But I just thought it was quite interesting. But Colin, the last bit of news. This is big. How much Pokemon Go have you been playing?
A lot. And there's been loads of things coming into the game. I haven't actually been able to play a lot of Pokemon Go recently because my data's been shot because of the whole internet saga here. But now it's refreshed. I'm back in the game. I'm balls deep in it, trying to get Celebi. And it's just great time for everyone. But I know what you're going to talk about. And actually, whilst you were talking, I was just watching the YouTube video that was announced. Are you going to talk about how like the whole Pokemon Go community went into meltdown last week because of a mysterious Pokemon that was appearing everywhere?
Yeah, so it started appearing late last week, and people were losing their shit because this random weird little blobby thing was appearing. And whenever you caught it, it turned into a Ditto.
Yes.
And it looked like now this Pokemon is official. It's called Meltan, and it's the Hex Nut Pokemon. And it's now out in Pokemon Go. I haven't actually caught one since the release came out.
Same, I haven't either. Yeah, I've seen them, but I've not caught any. They've appeared on my, when the Pokemon's near and their shadow appears.
Yeah,
but it's interesting that they've released this video. It's about 2 minutes long, and I can't believe it's already got over 2 million views. It was only uploaded yesterday, and it's really quite a cute little video. It's Professor Willow and Professor Oak having a little conversation about this new Pokemon, and people were, when it was first appearing in the game, people think, oh, is this an error? Have Niantic released this just as a glitch? Is it an error? But no, it seems like it's all part of their plan to start revealing it, releasing it, and then getting people all hyped. So yeah, we wait and see what happens with this.
I've seen some around, but it looks like it's just from what I can tell, when you catch it, it's just a Ditto pretending to be it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So yeah, we will wait and see what happens. But it looks like it might be mythical, so maybe it might be a legendary. But it's I quite like them using Pokemon Go as a way of kind of like soft teasing and launching new Pokemon. I think that's quite interesting.
Bringing love back to the Pokemon saga.
Well, and also because Pokemon Go, it's a lot easier for them to just flip a switch and have something come out. And there's such a voracious, active community that they will spot these things. Yeah.
And have you caught any Mewtwo's yet?
No, not from raids. Although I'll tell you what. I was away last week in Jersey. The Pokemon Go scene in Jersey is not very active. I had a Pokemon in a gym for over 3 days.
Oh shit! Was it the only Pokemon in there?
It was. Yeah, it just sat there for ages.
Brilliant. That's ideal. That's what you want, though. Is it still there now? Well,
it's not ideal, actually, Colin, because after 8 hours, that's when they hit their 50 coin peak. So really, I didn't want them much longer than an 8, but whatever, it's fine. But no, it's not still there now. All my babies have come home.
That's good. And there's one bit of news from Pokemon Go. They've released the new Pokemon that will be part of the field research tasks for October. So, Suicune.
Yeah, Suicune, I think they say.
It'll be available from the 1st of October. So get a whole new lot of research tasks, and then you can catch one. And it's basically like a big cat with tentacles and a cool hairdo. Yeah, it's cute. It's cool. I caught I evolved one of my my Grimers. The is it Alohama? The ones
Alolan Grimer. Yeah.
I've got a Rainbow Muck, which is probably my favorite Pokemon ever. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's so really sassy, isn't it? Yeah.
Good you know what, Chris? We used to have a feature on this podcast about demos, but I think that's been kicked to the curb a little bit. We did. So do you want to get a demo for next week and talk about it?
Yeah, I'm going to give the Mega Man 11 demo a shot. And actually, Colin, I would implore you to do the same, even though we would normally do one every 2 weeks each, alternating. This is such a
What
big
is it?
game, and because we're relaunching Demo Momo, Mega Man 11.
Mega Man 11.
Yeah, have a little look. And you guys at home, have a little play of the Mega Man 11 demo. Let us know what you think, especially if you're a hardcore Mega Man fan. Let us know how it compares to previous titles. Colin, what's the best way for people to get in touch?
You're not hardcore unless you live hardcore. That's what I would say there. There's so many ways you can get in contact with us on our lovely little family, our little podcast. You can email us, heroesofhandheld@gmail.com. You can go to heroesofhandheld.wordpress.com and go to the contact us section. You can tweet us at handheld podcast. We like to tweet throughout the week all the latest gaming news that we've spoken about on this podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Google Plus. And if you search Heroes of Handheld podcast on Google, we will come up and we will be there. We'll always be there for you. Just like this Friends song goes, we'll be there for you when the something starts to fall.
When the rain starts to fall.
There you go. And you can find us on iTunes, on Stitcher, anywhere where good podcasts are distributed. We are there. We're all over the podcast and the RSS feeds. We are going to be back next week, I think. No issues with next week? Are we back firing off all cylinders? Let's do it. Let's make it a date. Let's make it a thing. Let's make it happen. But I would like to thank you very much for listening. And I'd like to thank the Schnauzer Radio Orchestra. We don't thank them enough for our theme song. It's been the theme song since the very beginning of the podcast all those years ago. And we very much appreciate them and their support of our podcast. If you did want to listen back to any of the old episodes of Heroes of Handheld, you can go to heroesofhandheld.wordpress.com. You can go to the Heroes of Handheld button at the top, and then it lists all our previous episodes dating all the way back to the very, very beginning. So if you want to hear how we used to sound, then by golly, you can do it. If you want to listen to every single one, then strength to you, because that's a lot of content. That's a lot of free content. You know, I think that's like 4 months, 5-6 months of content for you to listen to.
Yeah, that's crazy. But good luck if you want to listen to all of them.
Have fun with that. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Heroes of Handheld. Thank you for not watching, but thank you for listening. See you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.